Hey guys, Will here. So something a little bit different today. We've just been spending a bit of time this afternoon tidying up the studio for the first time in a very long time and wanted to take the opportunity to give you a bit of an updated tour on what makes things tick here at Boosted Media. It's been quite some time since we've done something like this, but yeah, let's dive straight in. If you do have any questions as we go through today's video, anything that you want to see more detail on, let us know in the comments down below and we'll get back to you, either answer there or maybe we'll do some follow-up videos and cover those things for you. But let's start off with the sim rig in its current form. So if you come over here, this has not changed a whole lot in the last, when did we build it? Late 2020, I think we originally built this thing with the triple 65-inch screens. But if you haven't seen those videos before, triple 65-inch 4K big format gaming displays, these are HP Omen X displays. They were about $10,000 each Australian when these were first released. They've since discontinued. There are a lot of other gaming TVs these days. Big format gaming displays kind of just disappeared off the market. They were around for a couple of years and then I think gaming TV technology kind of caught up, latency got lower, and that whole market segment just kind of became a little bit redundant. So we don't really see stuff like this anymore, but these have been absolutely amazing over the last couple of years. And one of the main reasons why I like them so much is because they have DisplayPort inputs. One of the big drawbacks with even the newer 40 series graphics cards now is they only have 3 DisplayPorts and a couple of HDMI ports. So if you're running monitors that require HDMI inputs, you have to run adapters on the graphics card. That creates problems with refresh rate and it just ends up being a bit of a mess. So yeah, these have worked really well for the last couple of years. They do have a couple of limitations though. They aren't OLED panels, so the contrast ratio isn't fantastic on them. And yeah, look, you can see other videos. We'll post some links down in the description box below for some more details on some of the limitations around this rig. And you know, if you're wanting to run big displays like this, some of the things that you need to be aware of. I'm not going to go into all that detail in today's video. Again, we are still running the ASUS bezel-free kits on these, 1 kit per side, and then we kind of have a little bit of string that draws through to the middle to pull them in so that they stay fixed to the screens. It's a bit of a janky solution, but look, I've been keeping well up to date with all the various different bezel-free options available for the last couple of years now, three or 4 years now. And there's not really been anything that at least I've tested that has done a better job than these. A lot of the other kits that you see on the market use the lens out of an old monitor, and they just don't have the same lenticular effect that these guys do. These just seem to work a lot better than what those have, at least for us anyway. Smaller screens might be absolutely fine, but we do have a couple of ideas moving forward for the screens. I'll show you some other screens which we're going to be tinkering around with a little bit later around behind the car, which I'll show you too. And yeah, so I'm not sure how much longer this triple screen setup is going to last, but yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. But that's the screens. We have the 4th monitor up on top here as well, which is literally just an old television. I think I've had this about 15 years. It's just a 1080, or it might even only be a 720. Old Sony Bravia TV, which I literally just use for capturing, and you'll understand how that works with the dual PC system in just a moment. So this is just my OBS that I run here, just for capturing all the various different cameras, audio. So basically the idea is that it takes the parasitic load off the sim that's running the PC, because you can imagine even with a super high-end PC like what we have, you know, running triple 4K screens, it gets pretty taxing, and anything we can do to boost the frame rate and keep things nice and stable is worth doing. So that is the setup there. This is all kind of just made up out of bits and pieces from various different triple screen mounts. It was kind of based on the original SimLab P1X cockpit and triple screen mount. We ended up with some track racer parts in there as well, and we basically just threw everything together that we could to build this thing. But again, if you are interested in more detail on how all of that originally came together, we do have the full build series available right here on the channel. I'll link it down in the description below. So the main cockpit is still the original SimLab P1X that I've been using for about 5 years now in various different forms with various different appendages bolted onto it. The only things that have really changed since the last update is I've got this little dash thing on here now. So yeah, the idea is that you mount this somewhere in your dash on an older car that doesn't have any sort of interface or CarPlay natively, and then you can interface it with your phone and have CarPlay inside that car. Now what we did here was we actually mounted a little Android automotive box on the back of it, connected in through CarPlay. So when you connect this thing to CarPlay, it connects to the box, and then that actually gives us access to a web browser on the device natively. So that means I'm able to connect it via HTTP through to SimHub, and that is how I run my external dash here. And it operates exactly like CarPlay or Android Automotive would inside your car. So I can watch YouTube videos, I can listen to Spotify, I can open up Netflix if I want as well and watch a movie while I'm driving, all kinds of cool stuff like that. It's probably not the cheapest way of achieving the goal, but it was just made up out of parts that we had laying around. Underneath that is the Grid Engineering Porsche button box, which I use Not all that often, but it does look quite cool in the videos. I tend to, because I'm jumping in and out of different cars all the time, you know, I tend to just sort of use the basic controls. We're still running the original Analog's sequential shifter here as well. We have got a lot of other shifters that I prefer the feeling of these days, but this thing's just so small, and I love the fact that I can just unscrew the knob like so. So if I'm driving a car like a Formula style car or anything that doesn't have a shift knob, I just take that out and then it's not visible on camera. So it's just been really, really convenient for me. Still running the old Stream Deck here as well for controlling my streaming PC inside the SimCore housing. Still running the Go XLR Mini as well for mixing all of my audio. That all still works exactly the same way as it did previously as well. So that is connected to the Sim PC, and then there's a analog output which goes into my streaming PC and captures the audio. So all the mixing is done on the streaming PC, and then that output is taken and recorded on the other PC. We've then got the headphone output here as well. Another question we get asked quite often is, what am I using for sound? So I don't actually have any speakers connected to the system. I very rarely actually drive with external audio. It's always just through headphones. And I just use these old Sony XBA4 earbuds that I actually won in a competition back when I used to work for Sony years ago. These were horrendously expensive at the time that they released, but they're balanced armature headphones, which work a little bit different from conventional speaker drivers. And they have a pretty wide frequency response, so they actually sound really good. And they're just convenient because when I'm driving with the helmet cam on, which is this guy here, obviously I can't wear over the head headphones. So this is our helmet cam, and it's literally just a bicycle helmet with a GoPro 12 bolted to the front. We went through a few different variations of this head mount. You remember some of our previous videos, we had a big unicorn spike coming out the top there, but we've refined that down now. And look, basically what this does, I'll take my hat off for a second and pop this on. So it gets it nice and low over my eye. It looks absolutely ridiculous, and that's the reason why you don't see kind of like an off perspective when I'm driving, but it covers part of my left eye. But because most of what I'm looking at is underneath that line anyway, it's not too bad. And it gets the perspective that you guys see pretty much exactly what I'm seeing inside the rig as well. So that is our helmet cam. We started off with, I think it was a GoPro, well, actually we had a Insta360 originally, and then we went to GoPro 9, 10, 11, and 12. Look, honestly, there hasn't really been a significant difference with those GoPros since the GoPro 10. They've all worked pretty much the same. The big issue that we run into is overheating. If you're running off battery, they tend to overheat if you're trying to record 4K within about 10 minutes in an environment like this. Normally with an action cam, you're out and about, you've got airflow, you're on a bike or a snowboard or something like that, air's rushing at you and it keeps it cool. But in an environment like this, they do tend to overheat pretty quickly. We do have wind simulation on the rig as well, same old wind sim that I was running years ago, but that generally isn't enough to keep this running. So the best solution that I've found is just to run it off external power like this, and then not have a battery in there. And that seems to be just cool enough, as long as the weather's not too hot and I've got the aircon running, to just stay under that threshold of cutting out, and I can get about 45 minutes before it overheats and switches itself off. So that is a bit of a janky solution, but it does the job. Otherwise, in terms of the rig, we're still running the Simucube 2 Ultimate base on here. I'm running my Grid Engineering wheel, which you guys know is one of my favorite wheels, just because it does everything that I need and does it really, really well for most of the types of cars that I'm driving at the moment, at least anyway. We're running the Simucube active pedals on there. I did end up buying all three of them. And yeah, we've been running those for almost a year and a half now, I think. And yeah, never really looked back. I've absolutely loved having them on the rig. Obviously, they are still very, very expensive, but it's really exciting to see some other active pedals starting to come onto the market now. So whether or not those last on the rig, we'll have to see over the coming months. But yeah, really excited to see some of the things that are happening there. Mozo have got their active pedals coming out as well. So yeah, that's going to be really interesting. Still running the D-Box G3 motion platform on here as well. So yeah, the reason why I've kept this and not upgraded it to anything else is simply because it just integrates into the rig really nicely. I mentioned in one of our other motion review videos recently that it's got this base plate on it. Basically, the control modules go into that, and then literally all you have in terms of footprint is just the actuators in each corner. So it works really conveniently. And look, when I'm recording the point of view videos, I tend to keep the motion down pretty low anyway, just so you don't end up with weird motion where the steering wheel is kind of floating relative to the cockpit. Again, I've discussed that in a lot more detail in some other videos, but this has done everything that I've needed it to do. And look, basically this rig is designed primarily for the content creation rather than, you know, what I would do if I was building a rig just for driving day to day and racing and those kinds of things. So that is the basic structure of the sim rig. If you do have any questions, again, let us know in the comments down below. But I think that covers everything you need to know with regards to that. Over here, we've got all of the steering wheels that I'm running at the moment. Yeah, there's a massive collection here. Yeah, I mean, what can I tell you? We've got reviews of all of these steering wheels right here on the channel, so you can check all of those out if you are interested in any particular one. But yeah, look, the wheels that I'm using the most at the moment, the Grid Engineering wheel, as I mentioned before, this is actually the Grid Engineering V2 MPX wheel, so I'm checking that out at the moment as well. I've been using the McLaren Artura wheel quite a bit as well recently. And then the other wheel that we've been using quite a bit of late is the my RS2 from Rexing, which is actually over on one of the other rigs that I'll show you in just a moment. But yeah, been quite enjoying that wheel as well. So yeah, a lot of wheels, and these are literally all just wheels that they've been sent to us for review over the years. A lot of them we don't have out here at the moment. A lot of them are in storage elsewhere. But we try to sort of hold on to a core collection of wheels that we like to use to compare to others when we're doing our review videos. So I don't actually use, you know, more than half of the wheels that are even here at this point. They're just kept here for comparison purposes so we can get them out and quickly do comparisons for you guys. So that is the wheel collection. And that brings us quite conveniently across to the PC, because you'll notice that these trolleys that these are sitting on are actually exactly the same as the trolley that the PC is built into. So I originally had planned to do a whole bunch of content around this build. And look, I just needed a bit of a break from thinking about content for a while. And I just wanted to, you know, build something cool without thinking too much about, you know, setting up cameras and whatnot. This was built back in 2022 now. So it's a couple of years old. That time has really flown by. It's been through a couple of upgrades since then. You guys might remember a couple of years ago, or about a year and a half ago now, we had a 4090 failure with the power connector failing, so that's that kind of sucked, but we got a new 4090 in there now, and that's all running nicely. So it's running on a ASUS ROG Maximus Hero motherboard, and that's a 14900K that we're running in the top PC at the moment with the 4090, as you can see here. Now, I'd originally planned to run water cooling, like you can see on the bottom one, which we'll talk about in just a moment, on the 4090. But after I had the original 4090 fail, I just didn't want to take the risk of putting a water block on it and then, you know, having potential warranty issues. I've got to say, at least here in Australia, we had absolutely no issues with ASUS warranty whatsoever. We had that failure. I sent it back to the company that I bought it from, Scorptech. And as you guys saw in the video that I did about that, yeah, they sent out a new card, no questions asked. And yeah, we didn't really have any problems at all. So we've always had really good support from ASUS here in Australia, which is one of the reasons why I've always used their hardware. So that is the top PC, 4900K, as I said, I think 32 gig of DDR5 RAM, and the 4090 in there. The 50 series card should be coming out relatively soon, I think probably within the next 6 months. So we'll no doubt be upgrading to that once that all happens. And then the bottom PC is actually a 2018 build that I did, which I then repurposed into this case. So it's a 8086K processor from 2018, and then a 2080 graphics card, which is actually still overkill for what we use it for. This is literally just running that fourth screen and responsible for capturing audio and any cameras that I connect to it, again, to remove any sort of parasitic load off the main PC. The two displays here are just running off AIDA64, and they're basically just displaying stats of the PC so I can see what's going on. They're more just for cool factor rather than anything that I actually rely on day to day. But yeah, they look quite cool there. And yeah, I've just kept them on there. So that is the Sim Racing Trolley PC. In terms of the water cooling, it's just it's two individual loops. So there's a pump in each one of these reservoirs, and then a radiator on top. One of the comments that a lot of people have made is I should have laid these out so it looks like a V8 engine. I did actually originally tinker with that idea, but it created a few issues with airflow and turbulence. So having them laid out like this so the airflow could go straight through ended up working better. But yeah, two individual loops here, each one of them with a 4-bay radiator, and yeah, no issues at all with temperatures. I mean, it is pretty temperature controlled down here. We have the aircon running most of the way through summer, but yeah, it's honestly never really missed a beat other than just that meltdown that we had on the graphics card. And we will be giving this a bit of an overhaul probably when the next series of CPUs and GPUs come out. I'll probably tear the whole thing down, rebuild it because I do have a couple of updates to do to the bottom PC as well, just to refresh things. In fact, I think that's still running Windows 10, just because I haven't wanted to touch it. I've, everything just works, so I haven't wanted to mess around with it. So that is that's the sim PC, and then we move over here to the, well, actually have a look at the test rig first. So this is one of our test cockpits that we're running at the moment. It's the SimLab P1X Pro, which we just reviewed a couple of weeks ago. Check out the review. I'll link it down in the description below for you guys. And yeah, look, this has just become our platform recently for testing out whatever hardware we're reviewing, where we don't want to interrupt things that are going on the main rig. So sometimes if we're reviewing something like a wheel, we might end up reviewing it on that rig, just so we can get that driving footage and everything. But most times we're reviewing hardware, it goes onto this rig now. And yeah, it just allows us a little bit more ease of workflow, because it means we're not pulling things off the main rig from day to day. Nice and sturdy, so it provides a nice sturdy platform for any other gear that we might be reviewing. At the moment, we've got the Moza R12 on there because we were doing our update video on the new force feedback. We're in the process at the moment of reviewing the Husingvelt mag shift, which is actually really cool. So look out for that review coming pretty soon. That is that guy. And then over here, we've got another rig. This is the Cubic Systems QSV20. You've seen a couple of videos on this already. I am still working on the full detailed review of this guy. We have been running it for almost, I want to say, more than 6 months now in this configuration. Been testing it out with a bunch of different VR headsets as well. And yeah, I actually have planned, but I just haven't gotten around to it yet, a whole bunch of content around this rig. I want to sort of start doing some more interesting things around VR and having external cameras viewing what I'm doing as I'm driving, just to try and make things look a little bit more interesting, a little bit more dynamic. So yeah, let me know if you have any ideas for what kind of content you would like to see with a rig like this on the channel, because yeah, I've got all kinds of ideas, but it's always helpful to know from you guys what you would like to see most. So yeah, let me know in the comments down below. This is running the Acertec Invicta pedals at the moment with their clutch add-on, the Invicta wheelbase as well, and then as you can see here, the Myaris 2 steering wheel that we were talking about just before. And at the moment, I'm actually using the Pimax Crystal Light headset. We've got a review coming up on that very soon as well. That's been quite convenient because it has inside-out tracking, so I don't have to worry about having the base stations, which can be a little bit glitchy in this environment with so much light kind of bouncing around in different ways. Just to give you the quick rundown on the Crystal Lights, you guys might remember I was quite critical of the original Pimax Crystal. It just had a lot of features that were quite glitchy and not really suited to PC VR so much. It had the external battery that you had to use, and yeah, it was just a little bit awkward for sim racing, to say the least. We did an update video on it a couple of months later after they'd fixed a lot of the issues, but the Crystal Light has actually been absolutely fantastic. Obviously still bigger and bulkier than the big screen VR headset, which I do often run as well. But yeah, look, this has been really cool. So definitely look out for the review of this guy later on. I think you'll be quite surprised at how far things have come since we reviewed the original Pimax Crystal, and it's much more suited to sim racing than the experience that we had with that. You can see the old 55-inch Samsung TV that you guys would be familiar with. We've had this thing since about 2018 as well. We just wheel this out for whatever we're testing. It sits in front of the test rig, or it sits in front of here when we're running in VR or doing any other testing in here that doesn't involve VR. Really, the only problem that we have with this rig is just it's too heavy to be able to move around. So it kind of just has to sit here. If we do end up decommissioning the triple screen rig for any reason, we might actually even end up moving that over there and creating some sort of crazy rig over in that space. I'm just not sure yet. Again, let me know down in the comments below if you have any crazy ideas with regards to that. So I guess we better talk about the Lotus Emira, which you guys have been seeing in the background of our videos for a year next week, believe it or not. We've had this car almost a year. So come over here, let's have a look at it. So the story behind this car is basically I bought my BMW M2 competition back in, what was it, May of 2022, I think it was. And literally within about a month of buying that car, I was watching the Goodwood Festival of Speed, and Jensen Button drove out in one of these in this color. And you know that sinking feeling? I got that sinking feeling because I fell in love with this car at first sight, and I was like, oh no, I wish I hadn't bought the M2 because I really want one of these guys now. Now, I did inquire about them originally, and they were out of my price range at the time. Basically, I just couldn't justify the cost of something like this brand new when I just bought the M2. I would have to sell the M2 at a loss and then, upgrade it. It would end up costing me an absolute fortune. So it just really wasn't a viable thing. But I remember I rang Lotus and basically just tried to find out the deal with it. They said at the time that there was gonna be about an 18-month waiting list for them. And then fast forward to this time last year, a little bit before this time last year, I found this particular one on car sales, and had been sitting on car sales is like an Australian website for buying and selling cars, kind of like Trading Post or any of those websites, Auto Trader if you're overseas. So this car appeared on car sales, and it was horrendously expensive originally. I think he was asking 260,000 Australian dollars or something crazy. So, me selling my M2 and then, taking the money from that and buying this was just going to be absolutely ridiculous, because it's not, almost three times the car that the M2 was. But I ended up getting a little bit lucky. I ended up selling the M2 privately for a lot more than what I thought I was going to be able to. I did miss the peak of the market for those cars, but I did specifically buy that car because I knew that it would hold its value relatively well, as well being the last edition of the old shape. And I knew that a lot of people weren't going to be a fan of the new shape. So yeah, this guy was on car sales. Changeover price was going to be way too high, but over time, this car just kind of sat there on car sales. The guy that bought this car knew basically was just a collector. So he had it sitting in a warehouse. It only had 200 kilometers on it. And yeah, it was just sitting there waiting for somebody to snap it up. And yeah, I kind of bargained with him for a couple of months there. And I ended up picking it up in as new condition, as I said, only 200 kilometers on it, for significantly less than what it would have cost me to order one brand new. And I didn't have to wait the 18 months either. I was able to literally pick it up the next week and drive away with it. So yeah, that's how the Lotus Emira ended up happening. Absolutely love this car. I've actually driven it more already in the past year than I did the M2 in the 2.5 years that I had that. We've done a couple of little modifications to it. We've put the gold wheels on it. We did actually put a titanium exhaust system on this car as well for a little while. We shot a whole bunch of content around it, and then unfortunately we started having all sorts of problems with check engine lights, so we ended up having to take that system back off the car again, which was a bit disappointing. But as it turns out, there's actually a valve controller that you can buy that forces the exhaust valve open, and once that exhaust valve is open, it's literally pretty much a straight pipe all the way through, other than just the catalytic converters. So it actually has a really nice sound to it. I'll play a couple of sound clips for you now. So yeah, other than that, we do have a nice carbon fiber engine cover on here as well. The stock engine cover is just like a plastic shroud, and the carbon fiber just looked a whole lot better in my opinion, so I chucked that on there as well. But yeah, look, in terms of the car, I mean, it's a big move for Lotus. I don't know if you're familiar with what Lotus have been up to recently, but they've moved across to electric cars. This is going to be the last petrol-powered car that they make, which was one of the reasons why I wanted to buy it. Let me open it up and have a look. But yeah, historically, Lotuses have always been pretty bare bones inside, whereas this is a lot more refined. It's got all the modern electronics in it. Infotainment system, CarPlay, whatnot. It is obviously still a manual as well, so that was one of the things that it had going for it. One of the few sort of performance cars of this caliber that you can still buy with a manual gearbox. The Porsche Cayman GT4, of course, is another one as well, but those are a lot more expensive here in Australia. But yeah, I get out and try to drive this thing as often as I possibly can. It's not as often as I would like, but yeah, absolutely love it, and I think it's going to be something that I'll try and hold on to for as long as I possibly can. So yeah, that is the Lotus Emira that you see in the background of the videos. And while we're around here as well, a couple of other things that we've got coming up for review pretty soon. As I was mentioning before, we're looking at running some different screens. So we've got 3 of the new Ultra Gear OLED 45G S96QB monitors. So those are a 45-inch curved OLED display. So really excited. We're gonna set those up on the test rig first, and then we might end up sort of making those part of the main rig, or we might not, depending on how that goes. We will be doing a comparison between the triple screen setup with these and the Samsung 57-inch monitor, which I've got upstairs, which I'll show you in just a second. We've got a motion house motion system coming up for review as well. Those are the original exhaust tips off the Lotus. So I'll show you a shot of what the exhaust tips look like. I forgot to mention those, but we do have some different exhaust tips on that car as well. And yeah, there's a whole bunch of other stuff in storage off-site, which is coming up for review as well. We've got the new Gomez wheels. We've got a couple of other motion systems as well. We've got a massive stack of reviews that we've got to get through at the moment. So yeah, a little bit stressed about all that, but we're doing our best. It is just Tom and I doing all this. So yeah, we get through it as quickly as we possibly can. So yeah, that is pretty much everything I think of interest down in the studio space. You'll remember I used to have my office downstairs in one of these rooms over here. That has since pretty much become a dumping ground for just bits and pieces that we're kind of halfway through working on. So I won't show you in there right now, but let's head upstairs and I'll show you where I've relocated my office for all my editing and those kinds of things. So this is my current office space. This is where I do all my admin work, any editing that I'm doing. In fairness, Tom does most of the editing these days from his house, but if I'm editing race videos or anything like that, that's all done from here. I moved my office upstairs basically because I wanted to be closer to the kids and my wife and everything, you know, in the evenings. Often time, I mean, pretty much every single day, because I'm in Australia and most of the sim racing manufacturers are all over in the US or Europe. My 6 p.m. is pretty much the start of my admin day. So that's when my email starts blowing up, and you know, I spend most of my evenings in here answering emails and doing all kinds of things. Now, the Samsung's 57-inch monitor has been absolutely incredible. We are going to be doing a review of this specifically for sim racing, as well as comparison against triple screens, of course. But part of that review process, I've been using this thing for 6 or 7 months now, just as my daily driver monitor here. I've been playing a lot of Call of Duty on it, a lot of other racing games, just with the PlayStation Edge controller up here as well, and really trying to just wrapping my head around it. But, you know, as an everyday driver monitor, it has been absolutely brilliant. I love the fact that, you know, I can have all my emails happening over here. I can have, you know, a Netflix show or a movie or whatever running over here, YouTube, whatever. And, you know, I can have literally 3 or 4 things happening once. It's you know, literally 2 4K screens side by side on this thing. So it's worked absolutely amazingly. Other than that, a pretty bare bones setup here. I've got 2 old Sony speakers here from an old home audio system, which I'm running off just a little cheap knob sound amplifier, which actually works amazingly well. I've got a little charger here as well. I've got a dock here for the various different handhelds that I like to tinker around with. I just picked up the ROG Ally X a couple of weeks ago, which I've been playing around with. Let me know if you want to see any content around that. I am actually planning on doing a can you run a sim rig from a handheld video pretty soon, so we'll check that out. I've got a OLED Steam Deck here as well, which I've been tinkering with as well. I'll probably actually end up selling that pretty soon, I think, because the ROG Ally X has kind of replaced that. But yeah, been tinkering around with a bit of those as well. You guys would have seen that Game Boy video that I did recently as well. So that's been a bit of a hobby of mine of late. And then we've got the PC sitting behind me. So this is a bit of an interesting one. I built this guy, when did I build it? So back around sort of between February and April of this year, I think it was. Spent a lot of time building this thing, and I'd planned to do a whole heap of content around this build. It was quite disappointing, actually. So again, this is an ROG Maximus motherboard with a 14900K processor in it. We're running a 4090 on here. I did end up putting a water block on this one, which I was very nervous about. But yeah, we ended up, originally we'd planned on building this whole system as a bit of a kind of hybrid thing. So I'd custom ordered a wooden case, which actually arrived, looked really cool, but unfortunately the thing just didn't stand the test of time. It started to fall apart as we were building into it, and I just felt like it needed a bit more work before it was ready for the kind of usage I was going to be putting it through, because I do end up moving this around and downstairs occasionally as well. So I ended up sending that case back and ordering the Fractal Design North XL case from Scorptech, who have been a really great support to the channel over the years. So if you are in Australia, I can definitely recommend using Scorptech. You know, I have paid for everything that they've sent me, but they've always been really, really fantastic. So yeah, we ordered this case. I ended up having to basically kind of rejig the entire build, because I designed everything in terms of layout to fit in that other case, which was a lot bigger than this. But we made it all work. In terms of all the cooling gear in here, it is all EK gear. Now, this is where things got a little bit interesting, because as I said before, I'd originally planned on doing a whole bunch of content around this build. I spent literally probably, you know, the better part of 3 days a week for a month building this thing, filming everything. And literally the week that I finished putting it all together and got it all fired up and working was the week that all that news came out about all the issues at EK. And yeah, like, I just didn't feel right about, you know, putting out content that was, you know, featuring their products. So it's kind of just sat, and yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful build. I'm really happy with how it's turned out. And look, I've been really happy with the quality of the hardware. I've always had a really good relationship with EK. I've never had any issues at all personally. But yeah, given all the things that were going on there at the time, I wanted to give that some time to kind of flesh out and see where things would land, you know, before giving them any sort of airtime on the channel, basically. So yeah, that has been the way it's sat, but really happy with the way it's turned out. All the hardware has been absolutely fantastic. It does everything that I need it to do, from gaming to editing, everything in between. And yeah, it's just a really sweet, I think it's one of my best builds yet, even compared to the rig that we saw downstairs, that dual PC trolley thing. But yeah, let me know what you think about that guy in the comments down below. And yeah, let me know what you would like to see more of I guess, on the channel as well. We've been pretty busy with all of the reviews recently. We've got, as I said, a pretty big backlog of reviews there at the moment. But I do, of course, want to make sure that I'm always making the kinds of videos that you guys are interested in as well. So let me know in the comments down below what you'd like to see more of, less of. As I said, we're kind of in a bit of a transition period at the moment where we're looking at doing a bunch of different things with the daily driver rig, maybe changing up our racing videos as well. So yeah, let's continue the discussion down in the comments section. But thanks very much for watching, guys. Again, thank you for all the support over the years that have made all these crazy things that we do here possible. You know, I never would have expected that we'd be in the position that we are, but it's absolutely amazing to be able to do what I do for a living. And I do very much appreciate all of your support. So thanks for watching, guys. Let's keep chatting down in the comments down below, and I'll see you again very soon. Bye.